This podcast is brought to you by Steede Motor Group, Claregalway. For your personalised vehicle shopping experience, find out more at steedemotorgroup.ie.
Joined now by David Connors of the Tuam Herald to look back on the action in the Galway Senior and Intermediate Hurling Championship over the weekend. David, I was only raising the point last night with Jeff Litsky on the power rankings. It has really been a fantastic hurling championship so far.
It hasn't, is it, Paul? Sorry, it's just
Or no, it has. Sorry,
it has. Oh yeah, it has. I suppose. Like I suppose. Sorry, there's probably been, you know what I mean. There's been question marks over the structure and the lack of jeopardy, but I suppose the way it played out at the weekend, you know, there was plenty of excitement coming down, particularly in two of the groups. Anyway, you know what I mean. There's, well, I suppose three of them really. Like, you know, yeah, it has been good. I suppose, like, you know, a lot of people argument would be three teams coming out of the group too many, but like I suppose the way it's fallen out and the cross play around as well, it kind of does keep it interesting in that sense, and I suppose it gives plenty of games as well at the same time. So, I suppose in terms of excitement, maybe toward the middle of the pack has probably been where the excitement maybe off the top two outside Thomas's and Loughrea have kind of gone about their business fairly professionally, and they seem to you know, they seem to be a bit ahead of the rest. So. But other than that, there is excitement, and you know, down in terms of relegation and things like that as well, it's been pretty exciting. So yeah, no, it's been a good championship. I suppose the weather lends itself to good hurling, and you know, in the early rounds of the groups and things like that as well. So that definitely helps. To kind of the standard and stuff might drop a bit as we get, you know, the weather gets worse as we go along.
just on it. I know you had a tweet up about it, but like older players still doing it for their club. Ger Farragher, obviously, at the weekend, 16 points for Castlegar in their victory over Crowell. And just before we get into the games, have you ever seen a better hurler than Ger Farragher at club level?
That's a tough question. I suppose he'd be up there. I was thinking of all the since I kind of really started following it, like, you know, the really top players in Galway. And it's hard for me to say outside the county because I genuinely don't see enough of them. So, like, I'm sure you'd have the likes of like Owen Kelly and Tipperary and things like that. Like, but in Galway, he's right up there. Like, he's right up there with your Joe Cannings, will say, and like your Niall Healy's and Conor Clooney's, and you know, like these lads as well. Like the Cairns lads, Cairns is from Clarenbridge, and you know, a few boys from Sarsfields as well. Like, you know, when all these successful teams, and your Eugene Cloonans, and you know, you can name him any. Like, it's very hard to say that he's outright best, but he's definitely in the conversation, Paul, for sure. Like, you know, and especially what he's doing in terms of longevity and his age as well. Like, I know he was probably disappointed when he was let go from Galway, but like, if anything, it's probably helped him prolong his club career at the same time. And you know, like 16 points for last day, like he's Castlegar's best player still. Like, I think anybody that watches them regularly enough would agree with that. Like, he's phenomenal what he's still doing and what he's still capable of doing, and he's such a leader, and you know, what a player as well. Like, you know, like he's to say it'd be unfair on a few other people to actually say outright that he is the best club player I've seen in Galway, because there's plenty of other lads and there's names as well, I'm sure, that I've missed out of the conversation as well there. But yeah, he's in the conversation for sure, and like, you know, incredible. I suppose it's just a pity he never has got his hands on the Tom Cannon Cup, which would have been probably a reward, you know, for all the years of toiling there with Cashel at the same time.
Yeah, and the man is similar enough to his own age at the weekend as well. Like, just before we get into touching the action, Joe Ganley, very impressive as well over the weekend.
Yeah, 7 from play against Kilnadima, like, and what I think somebody tweeted me as well. I think he was on Tom Tierney as well, who was, I think he's 40 as well at the same time. And well, I don't know if that's actually how they matched up now, because I actually haven't seen it. But yeah, so like, sure, like, and he scored 5 points in play the week before, and I think he's 14 points in play in 3 games. Like, it's incredible. Like, sure, like Joey was captain of the Galway Miners in 2002, and like I don't remember a better team without Joey Gantley playing for them. Like, you know, it's incredible. Like, but like there's so many, like, that's one thing about the club. It's great. Like, there's so many stories like that. I mentioned Tom Tierney. Like even like, say, I haven't seen a whole pile of them, but like every week I seem to look at the Galway BFM team of the week, and Tony O'Regan seems to be on it for Rahone Newcastle as well. Like, you know, still doing it. Like, you just go down through all the teams, like they all still have, like, I think Andy Smith was back at the weekend for Portumla as well. Like, you know, so, you know, like there's these lads, and Niall Healy was, I think he was pipping over a heap of freeze against Ballygar and Tuam last night as well. Like, so, like he's still making light of his injury as well at the same time. So it's great this time of year. It's just brilliant to see these faces, like, still cut to the club level, and you know what I mean. It's probably the fact that it's down a couple of levels in inter-county as well lends itself to that. So we get to see these greats still kind of carrying on for a lot longer and still producing things like what Joey Gentley is over the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see these more experienced players still doing it for the club and still playing. Before we get in and look at the action, there's obviously an incident we have to touch on that happened between Sarsfields and Ardown over the weekend. The incident between Johnny Glynn and Darren Morrissey. It's obviously not a pretty incident at all of what happened, and probably did deserve a red in the end, but ultimately Conor Quinlan can't give a red card for something he hasn't seen. It's an incident that's disgusting, but backlash on social media for me has just been disgusting as well. Just to see people even slating Conor Quinlan, and obviously there is people slating Johnny Glynn as well, and it's not something you always like to see either a player being slated. But as I was saying there, ultimately, like, the ref can't give a red for something he hasn't seen.
No, he can't. Like, and I said this. I feel the same way in terms of the referee slating, and in particular, firstly, we'll say, like, because like he did spend, like, because I was at the game and I couldn't really make out what happened. Like, I couldn't see it because I was over in the stand side in Ballinasloe. So it did look to me initially like they were wrestling, and I did think it was, it was just their usual kind of bit of pushing and shoving. Two lads end up on the ground. There's a bit of jawing and mouthing and stuff like that, and Conor Quinlan, like, I said it to John McIntyre. He was the time he was covering it for the Tribune as well, and he kind of wondered, like, what is the delay, like, why is it taking so long? Because I was like, geez, it must be 2 minutes here. But he like Conor Quinlan, he did his due diligence, should I say? Sorry, excuse me. And he went to everyone he could to try and gather the necessary information, like, and like nobody's seen it, so you definitely can't send him off for it, like, so the giving out about Conor Quinlan and the match officials is, it's unfair. Like, it's not right. Like, I know that people may say the marks are there, but, like, you can't send someone off for marks being there, like, because
particularly when there's so many bodies around the incident.
Absolutely,
well.
And there's so much other stuff going on. Like, there's a lot of other wrestling going on as well at the same time. Like, and I think it was Joseph Cooney kind of squaring up to someone at the same time. And there's a few other bits, and there's lads shouting, and like you want about 10 pairs of eyes really to see everything. Like, and like it's very easy for like a TG Carr cameraman to focus in and to slow the whole incident down. Like, and instant replay. So from that particular point of view, yeah, and like, our social media, Twitter has become like terrible, or whatever it's called now, X or whatever. Like, it's just everyone like is a scumbag straight away. Like, and like no one is justifying Johnny Glynn's actions. I'm sure he knows himself, like, how bad it was and how terrible it looks, like, and the fact it was on telly as well at the same time just amplifies it. And like, there's fellas giving out there that wouldn't go to a club game in Galway ever, would barely watch a hurling game, and they're calling for 1 year, 2 year permanent life bans and all this kind of thing. Like, and like, it was, like, as I said, it's an act that I'm sure Johnny regrets. It's reprehensible. Like, it's one of these things that you just don't want to see. Like, and I'm sure he regrets it. And like, I don't know what happened. Like, but like, if it was me, and I'm sure you wake up the next morning, you'd feel terrible. And in a moment of madness, you'd probably get in contact with Darren Morrissey or the Sarsfields club and just kind of like issue an apology, like, not publicly, like, you kind of keep it quiet, like, and just to say you're sorry, like, and you did lose the run of yourself, and you didn't mean it and all this, and you know what I mean. I'm sure he didn't mean it, like, I'm sure he didn't mean it to be as bad as it was, but it was dangerous, Paul. It was warranting of a red card, and I suppose, I don't know whether, what the situation is going to be like after the ref's report is read and things like that, and whether a ban will follow, but, it's these things are not what we want to see, and I suppose, it's very hard, but at the end of the day, you can't send someone off for an incident you haven't seen. So, that's kind of the crux of it, really, when it comes down to. So, yeah, it's regretful. I'm sure nobody regrets it more than Johnny. And, this week I'm sure he said plenty of people give it out about him and X, Y, and Z. So probably don't need to add to that any further either. So, I suppose it's a matter of whether it gets dealt with by the referee or the county board now. or the Galway CCC. Remains to be seen, but I suppose that it's up to them to make the punishment, and not really up to you or me really either.
What do you expect to happen?
Oh, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Like it's like I'd be of the idea that like in the GA rules, it seems to be when the ref does issue a punishment on the day, that's kind of generally seen as it being dealt with. Does the backlash from social media kind of add to, you know, the county boards maybe perceived need to tackle it? I don't know. Like, does that add to it? Like, is it like it's gas? Because if this game was streamed and you only have one camera and the
Yeah,
camera isn't focusing in on the incident, like this probably is just, it's not really made light of unless somebody has actual footage of it or whatever, like, of one of the clubs of this actually the footage of the incident. Like, you know, it's not going to be dealt with. Like, so just having to see like the benefits of being on TGK are one thing as well, but like I suppose there's negative aspects to it as well. I be honest with you, Paul, I don't know what's going to happen. I actually don't know. I haven't kind of been kind of busy over the last few days, so I kind of haven't looked into it. As kind of covering under 20 game yesterday as well. Did they get a ban? Like, if they do look into it, I suppose we will get a ban. Like, but do they look into it? Depending, like, does Conor Quinlan make reference to perceived choking incident in his report or something like that? If he does, maybe then they probably do need to investigate it and look into it. But if he just says kind of, you know, whatever the yellow cards he issued were for, you know, wrestling or adding to a melee or whatever the thing may be, maybe that's seen as being dealt. I don't know. Like, obviously as we both said, it is a red card. Like, so whether the powers that be seem that they want to deal with it in that such a situation, that's up to them.
yeah, it's very hard to predict what's going to happen here. Obviously, there's a lot of parties to intervene, and it's going to be put to the matters of Galway GA now and the CCC to intervene to see what happens there. To get into the action, just looking at Group A first. Have Oranmore-Maree been the biggest surprise for you, given that they're straight through now to the last eight?
I wouldn't say it's a surprise. Like, I kind of, even when I was doing my initial kind of report at the start of the year, I did kind of tip them as dark horses. Now, whether I wasn't sure whether they topped the group, with Clarebridge in it as well. But in fairness to them, they have, like, they bounced back from an up and around loss as well at the same time. Like if you look at their new batch of players there, like they probably have the best collection of young players or new kind of rookies this year in like your Rory Burks and, you know, your Rory Burks and players like that have kind of come through, and like there's some excellent young players as well, like your Connor Butlers and your Evan O'Rourke's, and, you know, Patrick Burke has had an outstanding year so far. So, like, I wouldn't say it's a massive surprise that they're through to the semi-final. I suppose it's probably a surprise given the fact that they went down to Clarebridge in the first round, that they've responded so well, and they've done the business when it's required, and particularly when, you know, Niall Burke has had to probably leave the fray in a couple of games as well at the same time. Like, and, you know, they're a strong team. Like Ronan Heffernan there, like it seems to be like, just watching him on the line, he seems to be a very good man manager, and like you've Brian O'Connell, the Clare minor manager, like, you know, and we all know how good he is at setting up teams as well at the same time, considering like we fell foul to that this year in Galway in the All Ireland final against Clare. So yeah, it's like the talent is there, Paul. Like, they're in this year's under 20 final, A final again. Like, they're like, they, you know, they've been winning minors. Like, it shouldn't come as a massive surprise, really. I suppose it's probably like, you know, you have a nice spine there with like Rory McInerney, like, you know, Garage, obviously, Niall, you know, your few seasoned campaigners there, Ross Malone, few like that, that Ian Burke and players like that have been kind of there for a while, that have won All Ireland intermediate title, and now they're it is the time probably to kick on. And I suppose, you know, they have been very good in the two games to follow Clarebridge, and maybe, you know, if Niall Burke's penalty isn't saved that day, like, as well, you know, you just don't know. Maybe they could have been coming into the game round 3 for 3. So yeah, no, I wouldn't say it's a massive surprise. I think they probably are the second, maybe first. They probably are, like, in that conversation anyway, to be the best team in the group. So the fact that they topped it is you know, no big shock.
Even the last day against Clymer Daly, they obviously won that game at the weekend, 122 to 115. Niall Burke went off injured, and Rory Burke really came up with key scores, scored 10 points at the weekend. He's a player that it's hard not to get excited by when you already see what he's doing in the senior championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's a very good player. Sure, like when you've seen him with the minors as well, like sure, he was phenomenal player. Like so yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you know what I mean. But I suppose you're in the with the rule. I suppose like do you wonder does he wait to kind of the year with the 20s now to go with 20s, or is he kind of do you kind of bring him on sporadically, maybe like in a championship game, like what Galway kind of done with Liam Collins and maybe Gavin Lee in the past. I don't know, yeah, but absolutely, like the talent is there, so it's unquestionable. Like it's you kind of you just don't really know how the best it is to manage these players when you're kind of when you play a few minutes of championship or senior, you're kind of ruled out. Then like as I mean, like for the within what is the 7-day rule or something like that. So you don't want to affect the campaign as well in that sense for him. But yeah, absolutely. Like, but they've plenty of good young players. Well, maybe like Patrick Burke would be now someone that you would like to see maybe getting a run for Galway. Like, what did he? I think he scored 3 points in the opening 5 minutes at the weekend against Daly. Like, so like, he's able to shoot as well. He seems to be a good man marker. Good player. Like, they've plenty of good players in that Oranmore-Maree team. Like, so it's yeah, Anthony Keaty's another one kind of impressing as well. Like, so. And then they've like your Jerry Carrs and like it's Ryan O'Donnell as well as kind of making their first season with the senior team as well at the same time. So yeah, it's hard. Like you said, it's hard not to be excited by him. Absolutely, and I'm sure this campaign with Oranmore-Maree will stand him in good stead.
Is a county final or a listed game for Oranmore this year?
Depends on the draw, maybe. Like Loughrea, like it depends whether Loughrea and Thomas draw each other in the semi-final. Like, really, like if like otherwise, like it would open up the door for one of the Chase and Pack to reach a county final. But if not, like hard to see them maybe yet. Like I think it's been a good year for Oranmore now, Oranmore-Maree at this point. Like irrespective of what happens, but I'm sure that they're not looking at it now and thinking, that's their year done. Like we've topped the group, we've reached the quarter final. I think is it saying someone says like is it their first county quarter final in 50 years? But that's progress in itself. Like and but like you never know. Like you're not sure. Like like you could open up a door. Like depending on the semi final draw and how that goes. If Thomas is not very obviously progressed, like which they will be expected to do. They could avoid each other. There is a chance there, like because there doesn't seem to be a whole pile between the rest of the teams in it. And they will have a month off now at the same time to kind of rest up and recuperate and watch the games and have a look at the teams coming down the tracks. And I suppose most importantly for them, like can they get Niall Burke's needs to be hamstring injury? Like I know he had a bit of ice on it at the weekend. He seemed to when he came off, so they could get a month could mean a lot in that. You know what I mean? Like maybe the fact the last few days he's kind of minding it a bit. So maybe it hasn't been a full tear. So maybe that could like Niall Burke being obviously available would be massive for them like as well at the same time. So absolutely, yeah, there's no reason they couldn't provide on the caveat that maybe Thomas and Loughrea don't draw each other in the semi-final.
For their opponents, Daly at the weekend, they're probably frustrated because like that game against Oranmore, really the conversion rate, there was 3 or 4 shots that just and like some spectacular saves by Rory McInerney in the goals too, but they'll definitely be frustrated because they left chances behind them at the weekend.
They did, yeah, absolutely. There's some amount of chances. I think at one stage, was it during the second half? I think the 10 points and 10 wides at the same time. So like that's only like a 50% conversion rate, which is not good enough. Like yeah, they definitely did like easily. Like it's they're in an awkward position though. I suppose like Daly, like you're going to advance pretty much. Like you're going to advance irrespective of what happens. So like it's a very difficult one for management to kind of approach the game. Like like you are playing like the prize is there like of an automatic quarter final, but when you're out of the group, like does more motivation drop maybe slightly, maybe 1 or 2 points, and like you're playing an Oranmore-Maree team or like who need to win, like so that becomes problematic in its own sense. But yeah, it would come down to the conversion rate, I suppose. Like I suppose like Brian Burke maybe a couple of frees that he normally would convert, and like you're kind of relying on Brian Cannon then for a few spectacular scores, like so. Paul Craven had a couple of goal chances that were well blocked, as you mentioned, by Rory McInerney as well at the same time. So like a couple of them go in and maybe it's a different game, but I suppose from a daily point of view, like I've been really impressed with them defensively. I think that's kind of the standout feature of their campaign so far. I think in particular, like say someone like Aaron McDonough, one of the cornerbacks, I've been really impressed with him, along with
really
Aaron
good
Lawless. Really good again the last day, like I think he played county underage as well for a while as well. And then you have you have two really strong, a really strong spine with the two Concannons as well. I can give you absolutely nothing, or real leaders there for them at the same time. And yeah, it is like you said though, it is the conversion rate that kind of killed them for a finish, and one that they'll probably look back and regrets, and maybe things had gone their way. Maybe they have the feet up for a month now, and in that sense, it could have been really beneficial to them. But look, they're in the knockouts, and maybe at the start of the year, the number one aim would be survival when you looked at the group. But I suppose with Tommy Larkin's injuries, maybe there's an opportunity there to kick on as well after winning the two games.
Yeah, so Oranmore goes straight into the quarters, and Clonmara Daly plays Sarsfields in the preliminary quarterfinal local derby day. Just the other game in Group A you're at, Cambridge and Tommy Larkins. Cambridge winning out 20 points to Tommy Larkins 112. Cambridge, obviously 14 men. But is there a sense here that Cambridge are just timing their run at the right time?
I wouldn't say that based on the display. It didn't look like they were holding anything back, to be honest with you, in terms of that. And it was a laboured enough. I wasn't overly impressed with Clarebridge's performance. So I thought it was a bit laboured, and of the 20 points, Evan Island scored 16 of them. The other four scorers it's Gavin Lee, Liam Lean, and the two Ryan brothers, Joshua and Shane, came up with points later on. I wouldn't if I was Clarebridge, I would be a little bit worried. This was a Tommy Larkins team that only scored 4 points in the second half, didn't score from play, didn't have Jason Flynn. Roland Murphy was in his first start. Colin Flynn was just back after probably not doing a whole pile either. It's very much kind of a patched up Tommy Larkins, and for a lot of it, Tommy Larkins brought all the fire and brimstone in this one. And Clarebridge, really, you were kind of wondering were they up for the fight? I thought I was a bit worried for long stretches, and I suppose it was only after Mark Kennedy got sent off that kind of stirred something, maybe a small bit in Clarebridge. And they kind of even with 14 men, it was probably their best passage of play. You were kind of worried for a point, are Clarebridge going to go out here? Because if they were beaten, they were gone. The way things were transpiring, and you're just thinking, come on, lads, you're staring down the barrel of, we're going because if Jason Flynn was playing the last day, I would have been really, really worried from a Clarebridge point of view. I genuinely think a player of his quality could have swung the balance, in Tommy Larkins' favour. So yeah, no, I on present evidence over the last couple of games, I wouldn't say that it looks like Clarebridge are timing the run to perfection or anything like that. I just don't think they've been that good, to be honest with you. I think they're kind of missing something. Maybe it's a bit of physicality or something like that. Even the last day, Mark Kennedy and Keane Salmon were kept quiet again.
Is that it though, that they're struggling from scores outside an island?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, they are. And Mark Kennedy scored 3-3 in the first game, against Oranmore-Maree. I don't think he scored since. I don't think King Salmon maybe got a point or that sense as well. Absolutely, you're looking at fellas there that you kind of need to step up more. You need more from your Gavin Lees. You need more from your Mark Kennedy's, depending on whether he can appeal this ban or whatever. I don't even know if he's going to try and appeal it. You need more from him, David Lee, your Niall Armstrongs, Liam Leans. You just need more scores. You just can't be relying on Evan every day of the week to carry you. It's a huge burden. Even in the game before that as well, he racked up a huge tally percentage of scores, far too much for a team that should be looking to win a county final. And he did the same. It was the same last year in their semi-final against Loughrea. I think he pretty much all their scores as well at the same time. So, and as the weather now gradually gets worse as well, perhaps you might fear for them in a way. Depending on the draw, and obviously the semi-final draws, above any team, maybe Ardrahan's physicality and front six are fairly big men, and obviously the availability of Johnny Glynn, we don't know that. It's probably a team that aren't overly suited. If you're Jason Kennedy, Irritanian, Liam Ford, Johnny Glynn, Willie Wonty. Like you've kind of that kind of physicality there. Like, and you'd wonder whether Clarenbridge can match up with it. Like, so I suppose the next day will probably tell a lot in terms of the Clarenbridge challenge. How they match up against that physicality. But no, I wouldn't say presently it looks like they're timing the run or anything like that. I just think they're struggling a small bit for something, and what that is, I'm not 100% sure.
Do you still think Tommies have enough quality to stay up?
Yes, I do. I think now they've Ronan Murphy back with a game in him and Colin Flynn back, and like Kevin McHugh was centre forward the last, and I do think he offered a bit, although he didn't really get on the scoreboard. Kyle Dewey's an excellent full back, and I was impressed with Keane Duggan, who was kind of a lively inside forward as well, and David Hickey was decent on the freeze. Like, if they could get Flynn back, I do think they'll stay up for sure. I would be very confident in suggesting that they'll stay up. Like, he's just such a talismanic player for them. And I do think they're probably a bit better than Portumna and Kilkenarn, from what I've seen of them. Like, and I just do think they'll empty the tank. So yeah, I do think Larkins are good enough to stand up, and they do give you everything on any given day. Like, so, like, that'll be a tasty one between themselves and Portumna now in a relegation final. They know each other very well, so there'll be no love lost there either. So, you know, I'd fancy them to stay up, Paul. If I was making a prediction, I do think that they probably would. They probably have enough about them to ward off the challenge.
Just then on Group B, Turlock and Thomas's, Turlock 115, Thomas's 23 points. A really enjoyable game here. But once again, Thomas's are asked questions and they have the answers.
Yeah, but that's exactly it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and they have, like, after Dahi's quick 1-1 after half time, like, you know, teams that mightn't have their experience might, like, you know, start to panic, but they never do. Like, it's just same story again. They'll manufacture frees, and like I'm not saying they go out to win them, like, that they're capable of scoring from play, like, or that, you know, Éanna Burke or Dara Burke will land a point, or James Regan will set a move and start off a move that'll, you know, end up in a score, like, or someone somewhere will and stand up and get them the necessary scores, and then they just answer the questions again. So yeah, it's again, like, you know, like, I've heard people on your podcast, like, and at the start here, I think it was a Kevin and Connor that were tipping kind of Loughrea, and I was just thinking to myself, Jesus, if I was Loughrea now, I'd be like, oh God, what are you doing? Like, you know, because these lads don't need a cause. Like, you just, like, they're going for 6 in a row, you just give them nothing. Like, now, in saying that, I don't think it'll affect Loughrea overly, like, either, like, you know, in that sense. But, like, these players are so good, and they just don't need to be given anything at all. Like, if I was outsider, and I'm obviously not, I'm from Thomas's, like, I'd be thinking, like, just please, everyone, just stop talking about Loughrea, or you know what I mean? Like, if I was an outsider in that sense. But yeah, they're so good. Like, Paul, they've, like, quality all over. Like, you know, like, as in, you know, like, I know David is missing, like, but, like, there's an argument there that they might be even stronger this year with your David Cherry, Shane Cooney, and James Regan featuring. Like, James Regan is probably it's argument James Regan has probably been the player of the championship so far, given that he's been so good. Like, he actually goes under the radar, like, and what he does there, like, in midfield with them, like, and, you know, there's a strong argument there. Like, Conor Cooney's just, like, unmarkable, like, and Ian and Darren, Victor Mansour, Nusheen Flannery, and these lads as well, like, a really strong defensive spine with Shane Cooney and, like, Benton as well at the same time. Like, so, like, you're kind of looking at spots, like, it's going to take a really good team to beat. It's going to need, if they're to be knocked out, it's going to take a team maximising their potential, and they probably playing at a level or two below themselves. But again, I think the direct route is really suited them. Like, if they were beaten the last day, they'd have to face into a preliminary quarter final, and then you have the question, like, of, you know, picking up injuries and things like that. Whereas now you're in a quarter final, they're 3 games away from the 6 in a row, 3 wins away from the 6 in a row, should I say? So it's you know, it's a big ask, but it's an ask not beyond them at the same time.
It's from someone who's from there, David. It's, for me, it's the ability to bring through 1 or 2 every year. Like, even you seen the last day Damien Finnerty started, he hasn't usually started in the past, but then you have 2 minors from last year who come on as well. There's no other club that has been able to really have one or two players every year to make such a significant impact.
Yeah, I suppose maybe it is in a way, and Mansell probably would be the case last year. Finnerty's played a good bit, all right, in fairness to him. But yeah, he probably wouldn't be a 100% nailed on starter. I suppose Mark Caulfield was probably a bit of an addition last year, and you see what it transformed the team maybe in the county final as well at the same time. So yeah, it is there. It is, but I suppose, Paul, like, it's in saying that, like, and they do, it is the same fellas like leading it as well at the same time. Like, you're looking at lads that have 7, 8 county titles behind them at the same time. Like, and the younger players are just learning from that. Like, and I'm sure even when Evan Duggan and John Head and these lads kind of came through, like, they would have learned an awful lot from these boys. Like, so, yeah, it's even the last day again. Like, Keane Mahoney didn't start. He only came on, like, and like he was the man for Martin McManus last year in the county final. Like, you know what I mean? Like, when Fenton was under a bit of pressure, Keane Mahoney went across and he did a really good job on him. So, and Bernard is doing a bit of training as far as I know. I know he didn't play, like, but like someone of his experience, like, he's 8 county titles as well. Like, you know, it's you're heading down like untouchable status the way some of these lads are going, like, in terms of their middle haul. So yeah, it is their ability, but like, again, it's a combination of both. Like, it's the same fellas driving it. That, like, when they go, like, Thomas's are probably going to be under a bit of pressure at the same time. But like, it's just a case of, like, they just kind of are trying to win all they can when you have all the Burks, you've Conor Cooney, you've Shane Cooney, you've Fenton, you have you've Keane Mahoney, you've all these lads, like James Ree and, like, it's Flannery Duggan. Like, it's like you just go through the names, and like a lot of these lads are so, like, if they're not in county banners, they're very, very close to it, like, or they're at that level of a player, like, so yeah, they're still, in my eyes, like, they're probably the team to beat, like, and until they're beaten, I wouldn't be writing them off or anything like that. That's for sure.
For Turlock, like, it was a really positive performance. I think maybe the scoreline, when you look at the scores, Thomas has got laid on, maybe flatters them a bit in the end, because Turlock were really there towards the end. Couple of missed chances. I know Sean Lennon missed one, and there was another one as well with that really could have had the game back to level terms. But Brendan Phelan is a weapon on the edge of the square, and if they can just get someone in there with him, obviously they still have Kevin Hussey came on the last day. Not sure what the story with Jamie Holland is, but they can get someone in there with Phelan, like, that can pose a huge threat for Turlock.
Absolutely, yeah. But I suppose that is who do you get in there then? Like, this has been a problem for Turlock. Like, I suppose, like, the obvious one to me would probably be Sean Linan, and maybe just leave the two of them inside. Like, because I think Sean Linan probably in a Turlock jersey does his best damage inside, like, in a inside line. But like, the problem is getting them enough quality ball inside. So you mentioned like Kevin Hussey and Jamie Holland, but they're kind of back the field away. Like, they're not going to probably score, like, a couple of goals for you a game or anything like that, which could be crucial, like, but he does, like, Phelan is he's a weapon. Like, he is, like, I suppose, but the part of me is, he will field it, but then he probably needs to chuck it out to someone, like, because he might be able to manufacture the space for himself to actually score the point, which would be an issue. I suppose Sean Loftus is a serious loss to them, like, because he would link things there. And I know I was at the under-20 game last night, and Killian Ferris, like, off what would look like a collarbone injury or shoulder or something like that. So he potentially could be, it could be an absentee. And I know they had him in there for, a good stretch of a few games as well at the same time. So that's a loss at the same time. Yeah, like, I suppose, like, you're kind of looking at it there, and you're kind of looking at, like, your Tom Quirks and, Conor Shaughnessy's and players like that you're probably going to need a small bit more from to actually beat the very best teams in it. And so that's probably what they're kind of looking for more than anything else now. They're probably looking maybe for a couple of goals and a few points. Like I think the last day, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Dahi was their top scorer from play. Like, and like, he's their centre back. Like, and I know he scored 1-1, but he scored them in pretty quick succession, which would be a worry. Like, for all the good stuff they did do, and they did do a lot, and they were there and thereabouts, and a couple more chances go their way. They could have very well been in it, but like, they still were lacking maybe, devastating forward in there that's going to maybe get you, like, 4 or 5 points in play, like, that a lot of other clubs have. Maybe like your Sean Linnane could be that, but do they feel the need that they need him a bit further out the field? I don't know. So yeah, so like positives for sure, but like still they've now a preliminary quarter final to go through. They kind of you've an extra game and maybe possibly lesser games. Like is probably the direct route is always the best. Like, and if they could have beaten Thomas's the last day, it would have been a real kind of marker, a flag in the top of the hill. But they didn't do it, so I still would have a few questions there about them.
Yeah, I think that's the big question mark everyone has over Turlock at the minute. They play Mike Cullen in the preliminary quarterfinal. Thomas's go straight through. Gore to the big win against Portumna 522 to 123. That puts Portumna into the relegation. Gore into the prelim now against Captagal. But I've said it a bit, and I probably sound like a broken record saying it now at this stage, but that Gore result against Turlock really just seemed to have kickstarted their season.
Yeah. It just seems to have given some of their young players belief as well. Like, it's what a disaster of a start. You're like for David Hubin, like in the sense that you've Thomas's first day out, never lacking motivation against the neighbours or in the nearby town. Like so, like they're obviously going to go all out, guns blazing. Whereas, like if you're maybe a team that are a bit further away than Thomas's, you might have a slight eye off the ball, and maybe they mightn't be willing to keep the foot on the throat there as always. But I think you're dead right, Paul. Like I think the likes of say like Owen Cooley now and Nathan Gale and Ben O'Donovan, like and players like that have seemed to got a lot of confidence from that result. And Jason O'Donoghue was a player I've been really impressed with this year as well. Now I didn't see the Portumna Gort game, so I can't comment a whole pile on it, other than looking at the scores. But yeah, I think like it's been a really positive year for them. They've got out of the group. It's a young team. Like they've a lot of young players. Like like that's a lot. I know Jason Greenish came back the last day, and I think did he score 5 points?
Yeah, 5 points
as well at the same time. Like so, what an addition to bring back. I think Greg Lally played as well the last day. So like you're trying to mix it there. And Richie Cummins, I think, did he get a hat trick or did he get 2 or 3 goals?
3 goals. Yeah,
3 goals. So see, that's it. Like, and then you like if you add them into like your Aidan Hellebert, who's been excellent in the club scene, and Paddy Cummins is kind of had a bit of a breakout year this year, and like he, so like they're good. Gort are good. They're a very good team. Probably not good enough to win a county title now, but I don't think at the start of the year that they would have seen themselves in that caliber. But like they're going to look at now this quarter final against maybe an out of sorts Capitagal and a preliminary quarterfinal, an out of sorts Capitagal, and say, Jesus, like this is a game we could really target here, like in the game we could win. And as you're saying, in a kind enough quarter-final draw, and you'd never know from there. Like, but so far it's been positive. Like they're in Senior A next year. Like Ben O'Donovan and these fellas have learned a lot, like from what they've done. Like in a hugely changed Gort team. Like the team is like it's unrecognisable from the team that won a county final all those years back as well in 2014, wasn't it? Like so, it's good, positive. I'd be very positive from a Gort point of view on how things have gone this year. And I'd say David Hubin and the boys there would be very happy, especially when you don't have Aidan Hart either, like who've been leading the charge for so long.
For Portumna, just coming up short there, conceded 5 goals against Gort. Is this the year where it's really going to be a battle for them to survive in Senior
A? Yeah, I think even from the start of the year, it was going to be, given their absentee list and injuries and like Ronan O'Mara, like you're on about, like players have been very good for clubs down through the years. Like Ronan O'Mara is in that conversation as well. Like never mind your Joe Canning. So when he stepped away, like it was going to be a massive loss to them. Like and then Denny Smith only playing the last, like you had a few injury concerns to like important players. Like I suppose Declan McLaughlin, I know he was good the last day, but like he hadn't really kicked on so far in the club campaign. And so yeah, it was going to be a struggle. Like I think if they survive, if they can beat Tommy Larkins in a semi-final, it would be seen as really good year. Like you've a lot of young players back to play at this level again for the following year, and I suppose last year was kind of a bit of a renaissance year for them rather than anything else. And if they could just survive now and build on that, that'll be seen as progress from Jimmy Haverin and them lads.
Yeah, so they obviously face Tommy Larkins, and then you have Crofwell and Kilkenny in the other relegation semi-final. Just in Group 3, Loughrea 422, Kilkenny 13 points. Loughrea and Thomas's seems to be in this kind of category of 2, but have Loughrea developed their game from last year, do you feel?
Yeah, I think they're stronger. I actually think they're even better again than last year. Like Martin McManus only came on the last day and he scored 3 points in 12 minutes, 12 and a little bit minutes. So like what an asset to have. Like, and Oisín Kyle is kind of he only started the last day. They've kind of a few other players. Like I do think their game has got a bit stronger. I'm very impressed with Darren Shaughnessy. I think he was my man of the match the last day. I think he scored 2-1. He set up a couple of other goal chances as well at the same time when he was involved in winning the penalty that Johnny Cohen scored. So yeah, I do believe Loughrea are stronger. I just think they're from 1 to 15. They've a lot of quality. Like, you know, they've very strong. Like Shane Morgan has been very good this year. Cayman Killeen, Paul Hooban is a rock. Johnny Cohen's a rock at 6. Oisín Kyle is a great man marker. Like Brian Carey he's kind of like nearly a football wing back, as in he likes to get forward, and like Gabriel Larkin as well. Like he's kind of transformed his game over the last years from like a scoring forward to a wing back at this point. In like you've Jamie Ryan floating around, like you've Tiernan Killeen as a county panelist. Ian Hanrahan didn't play the last year as their captain. Joe Mooney's a phenomenal top player. A lot of scoring threats all over. Like it's hard to pick faults in them, Paul. Like really, like, you know, it's hard to pick. It's really, really hard. Like I'm looking at their 15 and even their bench, like, and I'm just thinking, like, where are the faults? I just don't see too many. Like Neil Carey's a hugely reliable free taker. Like it's like they tick a lot of boxes in terms of challengers. Like, and I'm sure they're the one like they are a bit ahead along with Thomas. Like I would have them definitely in that conversation of the two. And it doesn't seem like, I think last year and actually getting to the final, like some teams might regress from being beaten, you know, they might struggle to labour the next year. But if anything, it just seems to say like I'm sure the message from Tommy Kelly and the boys is like, we were so close last year, like then like we can look, just a matter of like a puck of the ball is all we need, like, you know, maybe a decision or two to go our way, like, and you know, like I'm sure they'll definitely be eyeing it up, like they're definitely good enough to win one. And like I do think like I said, you could say it about other teams, but I do think it's only a matter of time before they win county title at this point with this team, if they can just keep them all together. And I do think the fact that, like, you know, a lot of teams maybe that are coming in the chasing pack, if a lad stepped away or they're gone or X, Y, and Z, or, you know, Loughrea haven't had that. Like they've essentially the same team as last year with more experience. So yeah, hard to not be impressed. Like it was a mismatch against Kilkyron. There's no point in saying otherwise. There's, you know, Kilkyron aren't at that level, and Loughrea did take the foot off the gas in the third quarter, I felt, and they still racked up 422. Like, so that'll tell you what you're dealing with in this sense.
It's the way they're going about these victories. It's just so routine and so ruthless. You could say there already seems, as you mentioned there, they obviously know that they weren't too far away last year, but it's just the ruthlessness they're showing already in this group.
Yeah, what is it, like 9 goals in 3 games? Like that'll win you nearly all your championship games. Never mind the 26 points, 22 points, and was it 23 against Cappy? I think they were, you know, like Cappy would be a team that could historically anyway cause teams plenty of problems, but they just, the way they swatted them away was at their consummate ease. Like, and I used to have match winners and goal scorers and point takers all over the field. Like, and it's just like, if someone like Jamie Ryan as well, like, it's just like, you know, like just watch him all day playing Ireland. Like, it's just, you know, he's one of these players that you would pay the entry fee alone to go in and watch. Like, he's that good. So yeah, they just, as I said, Paul, I like, there's not too much you can really, like your previous guest well from listening to them, they do tick a lot of boxes. Like, and I know I was joking there about saying, like, as Loughrea, I'd be saying, shut up, people, like, we haven't won anything yet, like, let us win something before putting us into that kind of category. But it's hard not to talk them up. Like, it's, you know, they're so solid. Like, and like, I haven't even mentioned them. Like, the Garage Lucknow has been brilliant between goals. Like, he's puck outs of, you know, they're excellent. Like, you know, they're just on the money all the time. And when they need to be floated the right trajectory for the boys in the half hour line, they say someone like a Joseph Mooney or, you know, someone like that to win it. Like, or even, you know, if McManus does come out, like maybe a bit like that, they're just very, very good and very, very well coached, and, you know, very, 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 very good. It's such an easy cliched answer, like, but I can't say much more on them really. Like, as in they're going to be there. It's going to take a brilliant team to beat them, but it's going to probably take a brilliant team to beat them, and maybe them not playing to their potential at the same time.
Just in the rest of Group 3, there's obviously, as you mentioned early on, there's question marks over 3 teams getting out of a group, but the drama like that this produced in our third group, I have to say, last week I didn't think there was much chance of Mike Cullen coming out, and remarkably defeated Captagal. Then that put their victory over Captagal put Kilkenarren into the relegation battle. But on Mike Cullen, like, what a victory for a team who were like hammered out the gate by Loughrea in their opening game, then beaten by Kilkenarren in their second game, and there was going to be huge question marks there. But to come up with the answers at the weekend against Captagal, where not many people gave them a chance.
No, and on their form, like, that was probably warranted, to be fair. Like, anyone that was writing them off, like, they hadn't reached the heights of the year before, we'll say. Like I saw them in Ballinasloe last year against Lee Mellows, and they were absolutely super. Like, it's like, I was thinking, Jesus, these lads could make a mark in Senior A if everything clicks and they avoid a few injuries and things like that. Like, so, yeah, no, it's some story. It's in a way, like, I'm sure, like, from a Kilkenarren point of view, they'll be sending no Christmas cards over to Captagal, because their celebrations, they like, from reading reports and things like that, they thought that they pretty much, like, were thinking, Captagal will surely do the job now, and it doesn't really matter what we do against Loughrea. And it didn't matter, like, because they didn't matter as long as when they lost, it didn't matter if they lost by a point or 25 points. It didn't make a blind bit of difference. So yeah, it's some turnaround. Like, they're very good players. Like, they're actually kind of a bit underrated. Like all them Javerns are fantastic players. Like, Colin Cunningham. You're using the same names in after, like Urena Noons, and like Henry White, I think, was very good at the weekend as well. From what I seen, I didn't see the game myself. Like, and like, they're just a good team, Paul, as well. Like, they're probably a bit underrated in a way, and maybe, like, I'm not taking away from their win, but maybe, like, Captagal aren't the force they were either. Like, so it's and they still had to beat them all the same. Like, and maybe Captagal didn't have their eye on the prize, maybe a small bit as well. Maybe led into Mike Cullen's hands. But, like, Mike Cullen are probably trained by probably one of the best, if not the best, trainers in Galway, like in John Hardiman. Like, so, like, there's going to be nothing wrong with, like, how they're set up or how they're coached or anything like that. It's probably just, maybe just looking for that spark this year. And maybe they found it against they just found it against Captagal the last day. Maybe it was lacking. Now, obviously, they weren't going to beat Loughrea, but maybe they could have beat Kilkenarren. I mean, like, and that's not to take anything away from Kilkenarren either. Like, but like, on paper, like, what I mean, there's no reason Mike Cullen shouldn't be beating this Kilkenarren team. But they weren't able to do it. So yeah, huge shock, I think. Great for Mike Cullen and what they've produced. Like, and it gives them another year now with Senior A, and free hit at the knockouts as well. Like, and I'm sure they'll be eyeing up, like, a rattle there off, a good rattle, to have a good rattle in the quarterfinals and see how it goes from there.
What's happened in Cappy?
It's hard to say. Like, I suppose, like, when you're losing Paul Claffey and Dan Nevin from, like, a rural club, like, it's, you're just down. You're probably down too many bodies. Like, and, like, Donald Mannion hasn't really hurled this year yet either. Like, so, like you're down one of your best forwards. You're probably your best midfielder and link man, and you're down, like, a centre back who's probably as good as any in the county. Like, so, like, I know they brought through a few young lads, but it's a learning curve at this level as well. Like, Senior A is ruthless. It's absolutely ruthless, it's particularly now when they've gone to the, whatever, the 16 team format. Like, it's, you're kind of your eyes off the prize a small bit, like, and you're going to struggle. And I suppose maybe reason they might be struggling is maybe lacking a ball winner. I know they've James Egan, like, but like Ger Mannion, like Niamh Collins and Niall Collins are probably going to struggle against powerful defenders, like, that are just kind of going to get shoved off the ball maybe a small bit, like, and trying to work that ball into the, like, if they can't do it at this time of year, when the ground is soft, you can bounce it in front of them. Like, you'd be a bit worried about them on a wet day. Like, what could happen against, a physically strong, imposing team? Like, so I suppose that would be one. Like, I haven't seen, like, I did see them against Loughrea and they were disappointing. Now, I didn't see them against Mike Cullen, so I can't really overly comment on that, exactly what went wrong. But looking at the scores again, like your Liam Collins and Ger Mannion, they weren't tearing it up, and you probably need 7 or 8 points in them from play anyway. And now you Collins in on the freeze and maybe chipping in with another 1 or 2 as well at the same time. So it's hard to know. Like, they're solid defensively. It's probably just a matter of their game plan, trying to work the ball into advantageous positions of their attackers and kind of get the necessary scores at the same time.
Yeah, there's still one club though you wouldn't doubt, because they're the one club that'll always come up with the answers. Even when you look at the semi-finals there a couple of years ago, getting to three in a row, was a terrific achievement coming up short. And then just then, in senior, the final group, the game you're obviously at, Sarsfields and Ardran, on Sunday. I'd say it was a great game to be at.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Outside the old drama of the incident and things like that, it was a great game to be at. Absolutely, Jesus, yeah, it's a really good game. Like, I suppose Ardrahan, firstly, from their point of view, they'll be kicking themselves. Like, geez, they manufactured I think at least 4 goal chances down towards the finish. Like, there's one stage, like Oisín Seven got crowded out. Donafai, like a Johnny Glynn free, if he just spotted the pass inside the 21, did a close range free. They hit the side net, and like they had chances. Like, it looked like if they could have just taken maybe one of them. Well, if they could have just taken one of them, it would have been a different story. Like, but yeah, Starsfields like were really good for 20 minutes at the start. Like, it looked like they were just going to blow Ardrahan away, but Ardrahan managed to kind of dig in, get a foothold. They started using Johnny Glynn a bit more. They were winning their frees. I thought Keane Fahy was very good at, for stages at centre back, and I thought Keane Walsh was excellent at wing back as well. Oisín Seven was good in midfield along with Oranmore-Maree. Like, they just kind of, like, when Ardrahan got up ahead of steam, Starsfields couldn't win ball in their attack, and I just kind of felt they struggled with their own puck out, and they struggled working the ball into their attacking unit. And I suppose that gave Ardrahan a platform to counter attack in, and kind of, they kind of built from there. And Ardrahan are wily enough they have a lot of experience. I know they're kind of relatively new and coming to this level of proceedings, but like they still have a lot of experience in their attack. And it's a good game, yeah. Starsfields looked really good. Starsfields probably produced their best hurling of the season. The first 25 minutes, Alex Kinnear was really good. Darren Murphy was sharp. Justin Cooney was like, he was getting, like, when they were on top, he was really, really strong. And Kevin Hines was kind of was doing really well, and Johnny Glynn at the same time. So yeah, it's kind of just kind of a game of two halves really. And like, I suppose Sarsfields this year have gone for a really youthful attack. So maybe that might need to be looked at going forward. Like, I know them really, really quality players at the same time, but it was kind of getting that balance right. But yeah, in the end they won, so they got the job done. But like, at the start of the year, you would have said, looking at the group, you said probably could have claimed with 3 wins from 3, but they didn't manage that, and were hanging on for a finish at the same time. So it wasn't overly convincing either against Ardrahan. And I suppose Ger got a bit of value for their money as well at the same time. So, for a variety of reasons.
Just with that, with Sarsfields, it was really interesting. When Joseph wanted to go long, it was the long diagonal ball to Kevin, and he just knew all he had to do was put it into space, and Kevin had it.
Yeah. Sure, Kevin has had a really good year. Now, he's been really quiet, I think, in the last 2 games. Like, even his goal, it was kind of fortuitous enough. It was a Darren Murphy shot that kind of deflected up in the air, and he was just in the right place in the right time to bat it. He was very good in the opening round. So there's a bit of over-reliance on him to kind of win his own ball. Like, he's so good in the air, but like, you kind of need a bit of a plan B there as well around him to kind of, like, a bit more help, and you just can't hit him with everything as well at the same time. Yeah, but Joseph's distribution is excellent. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he kind of, at this point, he's very, very, he just kind of lets it in very quick. Sometimes he mightn't look, it might be an issue, but when he does send in the quality ball, like, the direction of the ball is normally fairly good. Like, so yeah, they were good. Like, they will cause problems if they could kind of just probably need about 10 or 15% more to really cause a shock. But like, they have players capable of it at the same time.
Just then the other game, obviously, Ger coming over Crockwell. I presume you're like myself, just listening to commentary and like just being like, geez, I wish I was at this game, because it had Everton Crowell go into 1-5 to no score lead, and they push it out further. Then they go in 3, they push it back out to 6, they go up by 9 early on in the second half. And Ger then, as I was reading your tweet from our own clip at the start of the year, to be Ger's mentality won't be questioned, and it can't be this year, because they've come up with the answers in this group. Like, and it's amazing to think now that they're straight through to quarter final.
How much money did Kevin Brady get off Castle to get him to say that? I'm only messing. He should go into motivational speaking or something like that, because Jesus, he's done a great job. In fairness, like he seemed to stir something in them, like, you know. And I don't know, maybe it's not. Maybe that's just been a disservice, like, because they had been, like, I suppose to a point, like Kevin had a point, but in other ways it was probably a bit harsh, because they had been close on occasions. Like I think it was like 2 years back, it took a Kevin Cooney 21 to roof it to the net, like to knock them out, and they'd been there and thereabouts as well at the same time. But like if they were weak mentally, 11 points down, you know, staring championship exits in the face, like you probably would be like, you know, lesser teams would have wilted, like, so to come back and do that, like, you know, I don't think you can question them mentally this year, whatever about any other. If like, and Kevin obviously would have a greater knowledge of what the ins and outs of what's going on in Castlegar than I would, like, so yeah, no, I think it'd be, you couldn't question it. Like, it was a fantastic turnaround, led by Ger Farragher, led by Greg Thomas, led by the likes of Shaughnessy again. Like, so it's, you know, like, I suppose Farragher will get a lot of plaudits for his 16 points, but I believe Greg Thomas was excellent. I think he scored 1-5 as well, and I think Shaughnessy was very good as well from deep as well at the same time. And I think Donald Barry, I think he was put on Adrian Prendergast after Prendergast going really well at the start of the game, so he showed all his experience and ability there at the same time. So yeah, look at the straight through, like, can't question the Paul. I can't, like, there's nothing you can say straight through a straight through a quarter final. So fair play to Kevin. He can send the invoice to Castle and maybe to Farragher and a few of the boys there for his comments. If he is a motivational speaker, I think he can pack in. Is he tiling or plumbing or whatever he does? I think I see the band the odd time. He can pack that in and start charging whatever he wants an hour. There's a few other boys that are at it that maybe aren't getting the desired effects that Kevin got. So yeah, no bother on him at all.
Even with that though, it was interesting listening. Craig Thomas, like, he wasn't getting a lot of ball inside, and they just moved him straight out to wing forward. I think he won 3 puckouts in a row, got the goal really to put them ahead. Like, it's great leadership for a younger player.
Absolutely, yeah. He's had a really good year. Like, he was even very good the day before that as well, against Claregalway, I'm right in saying, isn't that? Or who did they beat? Sorry, the big Sarsfield. Sorry, he couldn't. They had no answers against Sarsfields against him. What am I saying, Claregalway? Yeah, they really struggled with the directness of the whole thing. So yeah, yeah, he looks like he's kind of gone to another level again this year. Like, you're worried about him there for a year or two, where maybe, you know, you're a really big man at underage hurling and you kind of get to senior in and that physical advantage isn't there. But like, his hurling seems to, like, come on, maybe, you know, leaps and bounds, and, you know, strength-wise seems to be a big factor as well, because he's a huge man. Like, he's a huge asset. Like, and do you know what I mean? Like, I know he's looking with a few Galway squads that maybe Walsh Cup and things like that, and, you know, if he keeps going the way he is, like, there'll be no reason why you shouldn't get a look in again, you know, just because he's something different there. You know, when you're struggling for a puck out and something like that, maybe, you know, he could be useful in that kind of sense. So yeah, it's great to see from Greg's point of view. I'm sure he's delighted with how the year's been going for him so far.
It's desperately unlucky, isn't it, for Crofwell? It's just one of those games that takes on a life of its own.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, I suppose it's unlucky, but, like, can you really say you're unlucky when you're 11 points up and then you lose? Yeah. Like, and you watch you know, like, you can't really. Like, you had, irrespective of what they scored, 2 points in the last 20 minutes as well. Like, it's not good enough. Like, you know what I mean? I suppose, like, Adrian Prendergast was carrying a lot of the fight, and I know Jamie Ryan probably was as well, his usual abrasive self. Like, so, but yeah, something has obviously gone wrong there when you were only scoring 2 points, like, 2 points in the last 20 minutes, and you were being completely overrun. I think was it on 9 like Castle scored down the home stretch, like, in comparisons. Like, so you get a few
complaints. Enough to stay up though with the quality they have.
They should do, yeah. I still think they should. Like, I still think they're probably, well, maybe Flynn was there, you know, for Tommy Larkins, but I still think they're probably the best of the 4. It'll be probably between them. I do think they'd have enough if they can get all their ducks in a row. Maybe a bit susceptible to the high ball, maybe in the full back line. They're not the biggest men in their full back line by any stretch of the imagination, so that would be kind of a worry at the same time. But yeah, I do think they'll stay up. I think that they should be too good to stay up, but we've seen teams in the past when you get into a relegation phase of the competition and you know, things can just go pear-shaped. You just can't rely on anything. Like, it's all about now getting the job done. Like, you get a red card, or a couple of decisions don't go your way, like, or, you know, pick up an injury here or there. Next thing you know, like, you're one game away from going down, and you know, you're really fighting for your life, like, you know, and you don't want to be playing Portumla, to be honest with you, or, you know, someone like that in a relegation final, because, like, Joe Kenny can beat you on his own, like, so it's, you know, on a tight pitch or something like that, you just don't want that to happen. So I suppose they'll be looking at winning the first game and surviving from there.
Just then, briefly, David, on the Senior B and Intermediate. On the Senior B, the two group winners, Mulla and Killadine, are really looking the form teams there at the minute.
Yeah, and it's Connor that said it on your podcast as well, that he kind of well touted with Mulla before the start of the championship. He felt that they were going really well and come to pass. So yeah, look, with you, like, Connor Dolphin is having, like, first year senior level, looks like you know, looking water really. Like, I think he scored 110 the last day, 1-5 from play. He's a really good player. Like, and you mentioned Thomas has, like, been able to bring through the one or two, but for someone like Mulla, who our numbers are so tight down there, like, having a player like Connor Dolphin coming through is absolutely worth its weight in gold for them. Like, and, you know, like, he'd be way more advantageous now to a Mulla team than, you know, a young player as good as him stepping through for an Oranmore-Maree who have numbers, or even a Thomas's or a Loughrea who have really strong starting 15. So yeah, for their point of view, I'm sure they're absolutely delighted. Like, they're runners, like, in two Dennis leading the charge, and you have your Finney and Coon, and your Shawnee O'Brien and Sean Hardiman, like, great stalwarts there. And there's a Durban fella there as well, Carl, who's, you know, he might be moving freely as he would have maybe 10 years ago, but like you give him a ball in his hand and he's going to slot it over at the same time. And they'll fight for everything. They'll give you absolutely everything. But the two boys, Eamon and Derek, over them as well at the same time. So yeah, absolutely. Like, I suppose in a way it's kind of nice to see. Like, my own mother's son would have been born and raised in Willis. It's kind of always you'd always keep an eye on their results, like, and, you know, it's never nice to see when a team is kind of struggling, and especially the Galway depopulation there. So, like, they can keep bringing through a Connor Dolphin every year. I think the only way is up for them, and I know that's easier said than done. But, like, this year has been a really good year, and they've been really impressive. And I suppose you mentioned Killadine Leitrim as well there. Like, on paper, like, they're probably the best team in it. Like, and that's no disrespect to anyone else in it. Like, they have a lot of quality all over the field, like you just look at all the Malays, you know, Adam Nolan, like, you're just naming off the usuals, like, an experience of, like, Darragh O'Donoghue and Tom Tierney as well, like, a really, really good team. And, like, they had issues last year. I think they could score more than any, but they were conceding huge amounts. And, like, I think they won, like, they were lucky in a sense. I think they won 3 games and didn't get out of their group in Senior B, which was very unfortunate at the same time. So yeah, look, I wouldn't say they're on a collision course playing two teams, but, like, they probably do look the cut above most teams in it at the moment. And like, it'll be probably, you know, be a really good match if and when they do meet.
Yeah, and obviously you have Ashgrave, Lee Mellows, and Port Pierce there in the prelim quarterfinals. Are you surprised to see Clymer and Athenry in the relegation final?
I'm surprised with Athenry. I'm not surprised with Clymer, but I am surprised with Clymer in the sense that if they had all their players, I think they'd be good enough to stay up. But they've been just, like, you'd feel for them, like, they've been decimated with injuries. Like Jack O'Mara, like, you know, he's cruciate before the year starts. Like, Kevin Haney went off the last day. Nothing looked like he'd play any relegation final in 2 weeks' time. Andrew Carey went off. Like, I think they had a couple of red cards the last day as well. I know one was 2 yellows. I think Jason Broderick came on, he got sent off. So, like, for them, I'd say they're just like, oh, can we catch a break? Like, it's like, you know, thinking witch doctor or something like that, and Clymer's needed, because it's been misfortune, really. Like, they've really, and you come into play, they haven't complained about it. They've gone out every day. Like, it's been such a battle for them to get up. Like, and, like, you would have kind of nearly hoped for their sake that they would have had, like, everyone, so they could show what they can really do. But, like, for Desi O'Brien and them lads, like, you'd feel for them, like, 'cause it's been so unfortunate. Athenry, it's been a bit of a nightmare, really. Like, you couldn't.
You worked with the intermediates a couple of years ago. Like, does this surprise you a lot? Because they would have had an intermediate team that were competing well, and the seniors seem to be progressing a bit, but to now find themselves on the cusp of intermediate hurling, it's a surprise for everyone, I think, Galway hurling circles.
It is, because when they were going well, like, I know it's like 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, like Athenry, like they won the senior and the intermediate in the 1 year, like so, like obviously that situation is completely different now in that sense, but like it is a surprise. Like, look at their players, like, and like I do think they have a lot of quality, but I suppose Conor Burke getting sent off or not Conor Burke, Key Burke getting sent off the last day was a big blow. They've had lads injured in a way as well, like your Paddy Hannons and Shane Quirks and Tom Flynn's, and like they are down a lot, like, as well. But like it is a surprise. There's no point saying otherwise. Like, when I was writing my preview at the start of the championship, I was looking at the teams. I thought I would have had them as one of the favourites to win it. So now that they're just one game away from relegation, like, it's just a worry. And like, there was a bit of a worry the last day as well, like against Mulla. I know there was nothing riding on it, like, but like there's nothing riding on it for Mulla either. Like, and I thought at the right, I was hoping to see from an Athenry perspective, like that something would have stirred, like, and they did a really slow start and they couldn't get back into it again. Like, they're very good in fits and starts, ball, for whatever reason. I can't put my finger on it. Like they can be really good for 20 minutes and really poor for 20 minutes as well. Like, and like they've lost games over the last couple of years that they probably should have won as well at the same time. So I don't know. Like, it is disappointing. Like, and I like a tight pitch now against Kilimer, like they're going to earn it, like they're going to earn it, particularly if it's wet weather or something like that. Like, they're really going to need to be at their best. Like, and if Kilimer had everyone, I would worry for Athenry. But at the moment, I think they probably might, just with like injury situation and things like that. In Kilimer's, they probably do enough to stay up. But it's been probably a really disappointing year for them. Like, they have a lot of players coming through over the next 2 years, having won like failed this year, like, so like you really kind of want to be hurling as high as level as possible when them lads are joining the panel, so that they're getting exposed to this level of hurling right from the off as well at the same time.
Just their best wishes as well to everyone in Beha. It was just looked like a terrible injury. Die game picked up over the weekend. So hopefully the recovery and everything is going all right there. Just as well, the intermediate prelim draw was made last night. So you have Abbeynockmoy, Ballindereen, Kinvara, Ballygar, Clarenbridge, Annadown, and Kenmore and Kiltormer. And then in the relegation semis, you have Turlockmore, Kilbeaconty, on Spiddale, and Frogwell. It's nearly every week, I ask all the different guests who's catching your eye at intermediate level, and everyone seems to come back with the same answer: Teen Aberdeen.
Yeah, sure. Look at, how could you not? Like, looking at the scoring average up until the weekend, it's unreal. Like, and you just look at their players that they have as well. Like, like Shane Maloney. You just name off the usual, like Shane Maloney, Paul Killeen, like, Johnny Conroy, who's brilliant player, like very underrated player. Connor Jordan, David Jordan, players like that. Like, I haven't seen them this year now, so I can't comment the whole time pile, but you just look at what they're scoring. Like, I know Ballindereen held them to a draw at the last day, but Ballindereen are a very good team. Ballindereen were hurling probably, like they put it up to Gort maybe 2 or 3 years ago at the same time. At the same time. So, maybe, like, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't maybe, as shocking a result as it was, but yeah, as you said, Paul, they are standing up, really standing out in that sense at the minute, and it's hard to see them being beaten, to be honest with you.
Who would you see as their biggest challengers?
Meath Aircourt, probably, because they've been there before. So the weather get worse as well. Like, it's not that Meath Aircourt are not a really good team in themselves, like, but teams will need to bring it down to kind of their level. Like, last year they played a relegation final, Tina did, against Haskell, and the weather conditions were appalling. I think it ended 113 to 112, and you couldn't score frees. The weather was so bad, you couldn't score frees from 35 yards out. So, like, I know the weather will be bad, probably on a county final day, so they just need to make it a war. Meath Aircourt are capable of that. Kinvara have shown they're capable of that. Ballindereen could be capable of that. Abbey could be capable of that as well. And I suppose I haven't mentioned Rahone Newcastle either, like, or I don't get to see enough of them. I'd actually like to see more of them, but like from one of the words everyone talking about them and things like that, they're a really good team. They're favourites, Paul, and they're firm favourites, and rightly so. And with Matty over them, there'll be no issues with how they're set up or anything like that. But like this intermediate championship, like no more than the football, like you just don't know. Like you could be favourites, and next thing you can just be caught on a bad day, like and you just you just could be caught. Weather can be go against your refereeing, and you just don't know. Like so, like they're rightly deserve to be favourites, Paul. But there is a lot of minefields and pitfalls to get through yet before they actually have their hands in the cup.
Yeah, so you have so the teams there who are going to enter straight into the quarterfinals. You have Sidon, obviously, you tapped their group, Ryan Newcastle, Meath Aircourt, and Teen Abbotsford, all straight into the quarterfinals of the Intermediate Championship. There's obviously a break this weekend now from the Herald Championship. It's a football weekend, but that's all we have time for on today's show. Looking back at the action. Thanks a million for coming on, David.
No bother, Paul.